After 9 months, 22 countries, 17 flights, and travels across 4 continents, we're reflecting on what it's really like to take a long-term trip around the world, discover our favourite destinations, biggest lessons, and top tips for planning your own global adventure. Hi, and welcome to the Global Travel Planning Podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Collins, who, with my expert guests, will take you on a weekly journey to destinations around the globe, providing travel inspiration, itinerary ideas, practical tips, and more to help you plan your next travel adventure. Hi, and welcome to episode 62 of the Global Travel Planner Podcast. This week, Karen is back to interview Doug and me about our recent 9-month trip around the world. As you remember, Karen was here a few weeks ago to chat to us all about Sri Lanka. So if you haven't heard about that, pop back to that episode and take a listen. But today we are going to be sharing our full itinerary across Europe, North Africa, Asia, and a short stop in the US, and talking through how we planned it all ourselves as independent travellers. From favourite destinations to practical tips, tours we loved, and what we'd do differently next time, we cover a lot. And if you're interested in specific destinations like Spain or Morocco, some of those episodes are already out, and there's more coming soon. So over to you, Karen.
Hey there, thanks for having me back again, Tracy and Doug. My name's Karen. I'm from the New Life in Australia podcast. I'm friends with Tracy and Doug, and you might recognise my voice because I interviewed them in episode 59 about their Sri Lanka trip. So let's get straight on to finding out about your amazing trip. It's been huge. You've been away for a really long time. Can you give us a quick walkthrough of your whole itinerary and where you visited?
Right, well, it was 9 months.
Yeah.
Doug wasn't there for the entire bit, were you?
No, I had to come back to Australia for a few weeks.
Yeah, he came back, I think, for 2 months, didn't you? And then he came back, yeah. But Doug had long service leaves, which is something we get in Australia, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So kind of we knew that was coming up. So that was one reason we kind of built the trip around that, because he had 6 months off. But basically, the entire trip was 9 months. I was away for 9 months, and we were in Europe, we were in North Africa, Asia, and we actually started off by flying over to the US for a few days just to break the flights up, because I'm not a big fan of massive long flights, and flying from Australia to the UK is 20 odd hours, and so that's what we decided to do. So to give you a quick kind of brief overview of it, we had 17 flights, 22 countries, and 9 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, that is huge.
It was pretty big.
So let's start talking about some of the destinations. Which ones really surprised you? Which did you love? Which did you not love so much?
Oh, well, we went to a lot of places. Some places we hadn't been to before.
Yeah, Morocco and neither has been to before, which was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I think we both fell in love with Morocco,
really
didn't we? We absolutely loved it. I can't wait to go back, actually. And I think Sri Lanka would be another highlight. Was amazing. And then in Europe itself, I would say Finland and Sweden. We went to stay with a friend of yours in Sweden, it was lovely to go and see.
Yeah, that was magical. All the Christmas markets. We started that in Berlin. And we did so many Christmas markets, and you had how much mulled wine.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was lovely.
But yeah, the Sweden experience in Finland was
fantastic.
Yeah.
And then on my own, I guess I spent 3 weeks in Italy in November in Puglia. With my friend Shelley, who's another of the guests, comes on the podcast every month to talk about different tips that we share in the Ladies That Travel segment. So I went to spend some time with Shelley in Puglia, which was an area of Italy that I had not been to before, not really considered before. And oh my goodness, wow, amazing. Shelley's actually going to be coming on soon, and we're going to do a bit of a deep dive into Puglia.
Oh, that sounds great. So many amazing places you visited on the way. Were there any places that you wish that you'd just been able to stay longer?
Morocco, without a doubt. I think I would say, both of us can't wait to go back to Morocco.
Yeah, we met some lovely people on a tour there as well, but just the people that we met, it was just such a contrast to so many other countries we've visited, and such a rich history as well, which you don't always realise. But it was culturally just so different to any other person I'd experienced before. So
and it meant that you'd set your foot on the African continent for the first time.
That is also true.
And
that is also true.
And Moroccan food is my favourite, so it was
Perfect.
wonderful food for me. Actually, I could eat Moroccan food every day and be very happy.
Tagine for
Yeah,
breakfast,
exactly,
lunch, and dinner.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, just the vegetables are just fantastic. I just
Yeah,
love
healthy
it.
diet.
It's so healthy.
Yeah.
They do love sweets though. There's a lot of sweets. Moroccan people have a lot of very sweet things, but you can avoid them.
So were there any other places that you wished you'd kind of skipped or stayed, like shorter trip?
I don't think anywhere necessarily shorter. I think probably Istanbul. I think I'd probably want to spend a little bit longer exploring Istanbul. We were there for a few days.
Yeah, Turkey in general.
I think I'd like to go and explore far more of. We just feel like we dipped our toes into that, I think. And also, we had awful weather when we were in Portugal. Really dreadful, particularly Porto. Lisbon was okay, but Porto, we had really bad weather. So, we just couldn't go out and explore as much as we wanted to.
Yeah, and in Spain, I wanted to travel a bit more around about Spain, but unfortunately there was train strikes on at the time. So I wanted to do some of the high-speed train lines, which, not a problem. I mean, it was a problem, the fact I didn't do it, but just save it for next time.
Yeah, it's one of those things, you can't plan those things, can you? They just happen, and it's about being flexible.
Yeah,
and also, I say Sweden and Finland would be other ones that I want to see more of.
Most definitely. And then next time we're that way, between Sweden, we'd like to go across on the ferry to Estonia as well.
Yeah.
That'd be something like that.
We didn't do that this time, so that was something we could do.
Yeah.
Wow. So how do you approach seasonal travel? You were mentioning the Christmas markets, and I'm guessing there was a lot of packing of warm things or a lot of buying of warm things when you got there. Like, how do you even plan for that kind of travel?
Thermals.
Thermals, yeah, because it's you clothes have got, from a male perspective, you're talking about warmth. It's not sort of sweaty clothes and you've got to wash them every day sort of thing. So it's about literally keeping warm. So it's more, thermal clothes. It's thicker socks
and things you're not really used to in Australia as well. We don't really have that here.
That is very true, yeah. But that all adds to the special feeling, particularly at Christmas time. It's freezing cold, and
it was pretty chilly. But we went to Marks and Spencer's in the UK and just bought thermals. So thermal, and also Uniqlo. I bought some really cool, actually warm, but very thin tops that you can wear underneath the clothes that were amazing. So just the layering, I think, aspect is really important, and also hand warmers. We bought hand warmers, which are. They were actually invaluable when I was in Italy, because in Puglia it was actually freezing in November, and I was staying in a tuli, which is a traditional Trullo, I've got it said right, a traditional home in the Puglia region, and it was very, very cold. So hand warmers in the bed were the best way to keep warm. But they are, honestly, I wouldn't travel anywhere in winter without having hand warmers.
I assumed houses would be really warm there. Like, I know in the UK, obviously everyone's got double glazing and central heating, and so inside you're normally quite hot, and then you go outside and it suddenly gets very cold.
Oh, I don't know, because I think there's rules, because when I stayed in Rome to start with, and we were quite cold, and I spoke to the people from the apartment, and I said, actually they weren't allowed to turn the heating on yet, because it's a rule in Rome that there's a certain day the mayor will say yes, you can turn the heating on. So I think that there's more to it. I think, like when I stayed in Puglia, there was a fire, but I didn't want to sort that out on my own. Set the fire and do so basically. And I was there with a friend for the first few days, and then she flew back to the UK, and I was like, I'm not going to mess around with the open fire. So just hand warmers, honestly, and that was at night, and then during the day just have layers, make sure that you plan for that. But seasonally we went from the very cold to the very hot during this trip.
I was going to say, and how you plan for packing with that means a lot of extra stuff in your suitcase.
Well, I think because we spent a lot of time based in the UK, we then left a lot of stuff in the UK that we knew we weren't going to need on this second part of the trip. So we left mid-February for the last kind of push of the trip, and we knew we were only going to be in a few places like Spain and Portugal, Turkey, where it might be cooler but not as cold. So therefore we took far less kind of warmer clothes, and we took far more of the things that you need in a warmer and a hot climate.
And we just talked about in your Sri Lanka episode how you had a base at the beginning and at the end of your trip where you were able to leave all of your luggage as well, so you could just kind of pack what you needed for your travels around the region as well. So that was a really good tip that you shared there.
And we did that in Morocco. I will just say we did that same thing in Morocco. We stayed in the same hotel. We did a tour, which we'll talk about in a bit, but we deliberately booked in the hotel in Marrakesh that we were ending the tour in. Even though it started in Casablanca, we flew in stayed at that hotel in Marrakesh and then got made our own way to Casablanca. But it meant we could leave the luggage and store it there, so we didn't have to take the luggage again on this tour all around Morocco. So then when we got back to the hotel, I think everybody was amazed because then we brought all this luggage out from the storage.
Suddenly wearing different clothes.
Yes, yeah.
I've not seen that before.
Yeah.
Now, were there any standout experiences or bucket list moments, like some amazing things you've been wanting to do your whole lives that you were able to do on this trip?
Well, go to
So
Portugal.
many.
Portugal, now others have been to Portugal,
Yeah.
so we're determined to get there. But I said the weather was not great. but
Right. I think
still
Chef Shawan for me was just somewhere I'd seen on the Race
That's in
Around the
Morocco.
World in Morocco. So this is the Blue City in Morocco, and I'd seen it on the Race Around the World programme. It was a BBC one, I think, a few years ago, and I was like, oh, I want to go and see this place. It's blue. It's called Blue City, and it is amazing. And I just loved it. I just thought that was absolutely fantastic. So that was beautiful. Going to Istanbul actually was somewhere that just everybody I know has been to Istanbul, so that was amazing to go to. On a kind of sadder note, on somewhere that I don't know, it's not a bucket list destination, but I think it's somewhere that I'd wanted to go to for a long time was Auschwitz, Birkenau. So we did that, and I think that. I couldn't sleep for nights after that, so that had a huge impact. So I guess in terms of happier things, then some of the Christmas markets. I mean, you can't, especially in Germany. Germany do Christmas markets to
food.
an outstanding degree. They really, really do. What about? I mean, there must, and obviously we did Sri Lanka. You did a train trip that you really enjoyed.
Yeah, I like all train journeys, as you know, but that was special. I enjoyed the train journey from Madrid down to Seville. That was one train journey I wanted to do. And Seville as a place, we thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah,
I'd
we
never
did,
been there before.
Oh, it was amazing. Seville was beautiful.
And then in Barcelona, just outside Barcelona, we went back to the town of Sitges, where I used to go when I was growing up, and that was a nice and special place to visit again, taking Tracy. I wish you enjoyed that.
I did. I really did enjoy it. And also, I'm just going to throw in there as well, I went to Jersey in October for 10 days doing a house sit. Now, I've always wanted to go to Jersey because of one thing. I was a big fan when I was growing up with Gerald Durrell. So I managed to go and visit Jersey Zoo. I managed to go and pay my respects. Shed a tear or two, I have to say. I just was always such a big fan of Gerald Durrell, and so that was a real highlight of me for me of that trip. Just being able to go. I actually just spent a week chilling out, house sitting in Jersey, but that was the one thing that I really wanted to do. So that was a huge. Since I was 11 or even younger, I wanted to go there. So that was fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, back into the UK, I thoroughly enjoyed the house that we did in Edinburgh. Just in the new year, holiday into the new year, and lots of train journeys from there, which I did as well.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, we did a lot of them. We went to Belfast and not been to Northern Ireland. So there was just a lot in this trip that when I start talking about it now, I could probably talk forever about all the highlights because there were so many, but it was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you've been to so many places, and how did you even begin to think about this? What inspired you to take on such a big trip for a 9-month travelling with all these different countries, and how did you envisage putting it all together?
I think it was where we kind of wanted to go to some places we knew we hadn't been to before. So Spain and Portugal were definitely up there. Turkey was up there.
Which I've been to Spain many times, but there's lots of
But
places.
some places we hadn't been to
in
in Spain, like this, we hadn't been in the southern part of Spain, and I wanted to do that. So it wasn't necessarily countries, but it was also places we hadn't been to. So I guess it was that. It was when you have the whole world to choose from. It's
Where do you begin?
Where do you begin? I think when you were going to, because obviously we were doing a lot of research to the UK and London travel planning websites. So basing ourselves in the UK and also catching up with family was really important. So I guess it was then we just took opportunities as they arose. For example, in January, I wasn't sure where we were going to go in February. And then I happened to see that Intrepid had a sale on. And I said, let's have a look where we could go. And Morocco was really reasonably priced on sale. I went, let's go to Morocco.
I was going to say, when you left and you were going off, I didn't know quite what a spectacular trip you had planned. And you didn't know at the time either because you didn't have it all locked in advance. So
no, I kind of winged it a lot of the way, deciding where, because of the flight thing about not having flights longer than 5 hours, it was kind of like, oh, well, where can we go for that? And then I guess we knew in December, we kind of Doug arrived back in the UK, flew back in, and it was like, well, we've got a house sit starting on the 29th of December in Edinburgh. where should we go in Europe? And it had to be Christmas markets. And, I love the heat, but also I was like, I want to see some snow. So that kind of drove that trip a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were kind of trying to plan a little bit ahead, but being spontaneous and
also
flexible.
It's a long time since I've taken the Eurostar from London St Pancras to Amsterdam since the new station opened up. So that was the starting point, and then we took it from there where we're going to head to afterwards.
Yeah, and just followed your interest from that point onwards. So where did you turn to get inspiration and practical advice for all of this?
Well, we talked about it for hours, didn't we? It was about more of a question where we're going to leave out as to where we're going to go, but then it had to logically follow. Because we didn't want to be going one direction, doubling back. So it seemed we wanted a logical sequence.
Planning a trip to London, if you're looking for tours that are well organised, full of interesting stories and a pleasure to take part in, I can't recommend Walks and Devour tours enough. I've done several myself, from famous landmarks to amazing food tours, and every single one has been a real highlight. Their guides are great storytellers who make the city feel alive. The team really cares about the details and puts a lot of thought into making each experience feel special, comfortable and full of those "I'm so glad I did this" moments. You can find all my favourite tours at uktravelplanner.com/best London tours. Yeah, so for example, like going to Morocco, we were then, well, where should we go from Morocco? Well, it was very easy just to hop across to Spain. Then we're in Spain, well, we might as well go to Portugal. So then we were actually, initially what we wanted to do was to travel from Portugal to Istanbul in Turkey just by train. And that was the plan. But then, to be honest, we realised it wasn't that practical because we had too much luggage and it was just not something. And if we did that, we were going to have to knock on the head something else like Sri Lanka, which we didn't want to do. So we will do that on another trip because we talked about it a lot and we looked at logistics, so we could easily do it. And I planned some places that I hadn't seen in Italy that I wanted to go to. There was a few issues with some of the trains when we started looking at it. It wasn't like around Romania, I think, was a bit more tricky. Than we had planned. Or Serbia, was a bit more tricky. So I think that would have needed a longer planning time than we wanted to give it, to be honest. So we kind of just gave in and decided we're going to just have to fly. So that, I think it was just then, which are the key destinations we haven't been to that we want to go to? I knew we hadn't been to Portugal, we hadn't been to Poland, we hadn't been to Morocco, we hadn't been to Qatar, we hadn't been to Sri Lanka, we hadn't been to Turkey before. There's actually a lot of destinations we actually hadn't been to. And I'm keen to see as many places as I can. I think there's only about 3 countries or 4 countries in Europe that we haven't been to now. So trying to cover as much as possible. Again, trying to do as much research as possible for the website's Global Travel Planner website as well, because we're kind of focused a lot on train travel and planning train travel around the world.
But also you've got to consider is how much it's going to cost you.
Yeah.
So you've got to wait. Well, I might want to do that, but that is crazy expensive, so that's going to have to wait till next time.
Yeah,
like Iceland.
So you've got to be practical.
Yeah, Iceland was high on my wish list. It was in the top 3. And I looked at it, and I could have actually gone from Glasgow, from Edinburgh to Glasgow, got the flight over, and spent a week in Iceland while Doug stayed at the house sit. And I did look at it, but then Doug kind of went, I really want to go.
I did.
So Iceland kind of got pushed back. So that'll be on another trip. Like, you can't do everything. You just can't.
And there will be other trips. Do you know what I mean? It's not like this is the only trip. So there'll always be other trips for sure. But yeah, there's so many logistics involved in it, like whether it's luggage, whether it's flights, whether it's time, whether it's budget. You have to kind of compromise somewhere on every trip that you do, don't you? It's just about fitting in those really important things. So you travelled a lot independently, and you also did some tours as part of the trip. Can you tell us a bit about some of the tours that you did and which ones stood out?
Well, we like food, so we do tend to look at food tours wherever we go, don't we?
Yeah, and we were very spoilt by Walks and Devour tours, and that they invited us to experience some of their tours. So a huge thank you to Walks and to Devour for that. And honestly, we highly recommend that you do a food tour as the first thing that you do when you arrive at a destination, because you will find out about all the best places to eat. You will learn about what to eat, because you might not be aware of all the different local specialities and what's around. So we did food tours in Madrid, we did a food tours in Seville, Seville. We did food tours in Barcelona.
I'm spotting a theme here.
Yeah. We've done food tours in London with Devour as well. I mean, so they were fabulous. And one food tour we did the tapas and flamenco one in Seville.
Oh, that was just outstanding.
Stand out.
I cannot think of the word. I can't even find the words to describe that evening with the flamenco dancing.
Oh no! And a big shout out as well to Sophie who took the tour. She was fabulous,
She was
absolutely fabulous, and
Really
her
was.
love for flamenco came through as well. So we were all kind of really excited by the time I got to watch it, and it did not disappoint. And actually, Sophie said it was one of the best ones she'd seen.
Yeah.
So she was fabulous. All of the walks and Devour guides are outstanding.
And one thing I will say is they also incorporate a little bit of history of
You
the
learn about the
location
history
and the country.
Yeah.
Just a nice, lovely balance.
Yeah.
It's not like a history lesson, it's just a little bit in there just to give it a theme,
and they do say that it's not just about food, it's about learning about the culture and the history as well, and that is important. Otherwise you have no context to put it in. So you learn about the history of the different places that you go to eat as well as the foods, and it's important in kind of the region and the history and culture of the people of that area. So that's really important. We did some walking tours as well, with walks again, huge thank you. Big standout for me was the tour in Seville with Alba.
Oh yeah, that's right, yeah.
Fantastic. Hi Alba, big shout out to you because you were amazing. You were fantastic. I've got a lovely reel on Instagram with Alba, so I will share that in the show notes. She was outstanding and we had such a lovely time with her, and it was a day in Seville tour with her, and we learned about the history. We walked around Seville. We saw so much.
We had some lunch with her afterwards.
We had lunch with her after we took her for lunch because we just absolutely amazing. We did some fantastic tours in Barcelona as well, learning about Gaudi. We'll say it right, Gaudi, which were also fantastic. And I recommend highly, if you visit a place, to do a tour, because if you walk around yourself, you don't learn or you just don't get to know as much as you would if you do a tour.
Yeah, I love going on tours. And I think it sounds like you blended travelling independently with day tours, with some multi-day tours to get the best balance of everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, we did a lot of day tours, and we also did a multi-day tour in Morocco, and that was through Intrepid. I've toured with Intrepid before. I did 2 tours in India last year with Intrepid, so I know they're an excellent company, and it was just brilliant. It was really enjoyable, and it was the first time that Doug's actually done a multi-day tour. That he's never done something that wasn't independent. So I had to talk him into that because he was a bit like, I don't know if I want to travel with these people I don't know. But you loved it.
I did, yeah. A big shout out there to the tour guide Fred, who really looked after me. Before I left the UK, I'd been in hospital, so he looked after me when I said I needed certain things and certain conditions and, privacy.
Yeah, he's brilliant. It was really good. All the tour guides were fantastic. Big shout out to Fred. And we did other tours in other destinations as well. So again, just highly recommend you do a food tour. If you're only in destination for a short period of time, do a day in tour with walks. So like a day in Seville, a day in Barcelona, because you get everything kind of condensed into the day, but all the main highlights of a destination.
Yeah,
so
that sounds like the perfect balance. So what did you pack for your trip when you were going away for that long? Like, did you actually know you were going away for 9 months when you went away? I can't remember if you did, or if I knew you were going for a longer trip, but how do you even begin to pack for something like that when you're just kind of going off? And
we didn't have a definite. We didn't have a flight back, but we knew we had to be back for Doug going back to work in the middle of May. So I knew I was going to be away kind of 9 months-ish, and I did say to people when I left, I'm not sure when I'm going to be back exactly, and our daughter as well was like, we'll be back sometime in May.
one day.
We'll be back in May. So packing, I look at it, I do have a lot of things at Mum's house, probably too much stuff at Mum's house in the UK, so she did have some of my clothes there, and I did buy stuff. I'm terrible. I do buy clothes, and I'm terrible in the UK. Go to
She's terrible everywhere.
I bought some scarves in Morocco and some other bits. Yeah, I mean it's
the amount of clothes I carry seems to get less.
He was like, how come do I have like a third of one of the suitcases and you have 2/3 and all of the other
see, my
suitcases?
husband and I are opposites. He packs all the cases and I travel really light with hardly anything. So yeah.
I think, I mean, it was...
A lot of layers you took.
Yeah, I did take, I guess because we knew we were going to be in Europe for winter, so we did buy things like, say, the thermal things when we're over there. We've got coats that were bought in Australia from, where was it? Not Anaconda, from, what's the shop in Australia we bought them from? Kathmandu, that's it. We bought from Kathmandu. So we had those, and then, probably bought some more gloves. And I mean, you can't have too many scarves. I've got lots of scarves and things.
I have some trousers that convert to shorts.
The practical stuff, yeah.
Actually, what I did find is that I didn't have enough clothes for hot climate. That's where I struggled more when we were coming back, because we left a lot of stuff in the UK, and I just didn't have enough. I didn't have enough shorts. It was shorts specifically. If you're going to mention one item of clothing, it was short. One pair of shorts. That was a big mistake, considering we're in really hot climates and you just want to be wearing shorts.
Yeah, and you probably got a heap of shorts here in Australia and sandals and everything kind of. Yeah.
I had one pair of sandals. I'm always very strict with footwear. So I took one pair of sandals, one pair of flip-flops, and I had one pair of trainers. So I'm very strict with footwear. And I did have a pair of boots in the UK, which I've left at mum's. But I think it was more, I think I've come back and I counted yesterday, I had something like 35 pairs of shorts. And I was like, I could have done with these when we were in Malaysia and Sri Lanka. But yeah, it is a juggle. You have to, I mean, thank goodness for compressed and packing cubes.
Yeah, and expandable suitcases.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, that is very
things.
good.
That's the other thing, is buying things when you go. It's like I bought things, so yeah.
Not to mention 20,000 fridge magnets.
Yeah, I know. And people go, oh, fridge magnets. I'm like, I don't care. Fridge magnets, they're
not
small.
that heavy.
They don't take any room.
Not when you got 3 ton of them.
Yeah, because you've got to think about, like, in Europe for flying, they're so strict about weight. So I had to pay extra weight before I got onto the flights for everything. I just knew we were going to... And we ended up buying a bigger suitcase in... Where were we? Seville. Is it Seville?
Spain.
In Barcelona.
Sitges.
Just near Barcelona. We ended up buying a big suitcase. I had to buy another suitcase, yeah.
Wow. You should box it all up and use send my bag to send it home.
Well, you know what? I think that's what we'll be doing. And we're thinking about that, actually, when we're in the UK, we've got a few suitcases left. And I was like, and I know you talked about send my bag, so that's something we should definitely look at.
It's a great service. It's definitely useful for when you're travelling and collecting things as you go around.
Yeah.
So how did you manage things like insurance, visas and money across the countries that you were travelling in?
Well, insurance, we've both got global travel insurance for 12 months. So we just made sure that it covered all the countries and destinations that we're going to. And some things like the Intrepid tour, you've got to prove that you've got insurance. So, I would never travel without travel insurance at all. Yeah. It's just too risky. So we always make sure we have full cover. I got sick last year, the year before, when we were in Vietnam, and ended up having to go to hospital with pneumonia. And it only cost, I think, $400 Australian in the end, because I had cover. So we went to a private hospital and had everything done and could claim it all back. So I just think it's so important to make sure. So that's something we always have. Yeah. Just check it covers the destinations and the things that you're going to do. I mean, we don't go skiing.
I was going to say, you're not skydiving, are you, Doug?
No, like you have to check it too. It's like we're not that adventurous. We don't go scuba diving. Anything like that. So just make sure it's got the cover. When it comes to... was money the other thing that you were asking
visas.
About? Visas. Okay, yeah, visas. Well... You just have to check what visa you need for a specific country. Now, we were travelling on an Australian passport, and what I hadn't realised was that you don't need a visa for Turkey if you're travelling on your British passport. Oh. So if I travelled on a British one, I could have gone to Turkey and would have saved us a lot of money. But because we were on an Australian one, I ended up getting visas. I need to renew my British passport. So that was one thing. So do check that if you have 2 passports, because you've got dual nationality, just check, because one place you may not need a visa for on one of the passports, so that might save you money.
Yeah.
So just make sure to check. A lot of places as well, you just have to pay online. Like Sri Lanka, there's a $50 tourist tax. Tourist tax, yeah. So just make sure you do that before. And other visas you have to do, not visas, they're more like a health declaration for Singapore. You have to do before you arrive. I think Malaysia, you do it on arrival. Morocco, I don't think we needed a visa for, and obviously anyway in Europe we didn't. We have got British and Australian passports, but it just check. And also because there's now a lot of things like ETAs and ESTAs and all these other things that are coming in, ETIAS and all, I don't know, you've just got to check what you will need to go into a certain destination.
Because going back to the UK now, if you don't have your British passport up to date, then you need to get an ETA as well.
Yeah, so there's all sorts of things like that. So I know when it came to Sri Lanka, we did check with our friend who had been there previously a few months before. In fact, that was it. Also, Shelley, we picked her brains a lot about Sri Lanka when we were planning the trip about like cash.
As regards finance, we do keep a spreadsheet of expenditure when we book things in advance. Which ones are paid for. The cost of things. That's why we try and use an accommodation range. So we're saying really nice places and
to work for a budget.
Yeah,
to work for a budget. But I think that's one way of dealing with it, isn't it? Coping with it, kind of working out your budget.
It's a really good idea as well. It just helps you sort of keep on track of what you're spending in a different destination and what expenses you've got coming up, especially when you're travelling to lots of different countries and you're managing a budget for 9 months while you're travelling.
Well,
In terms of money for travelling, were you generally using cash while you were travelling, ATMs or cards?
Bit of a mixture. It depends where you were. At Morocco, we needed cash, and in Sri Lanka, we needed cash. But I would say, I don't think we had a few euros when we were traveling around Kalamina, but honestly, contactless really.
Even the Christmas markets was contactless.
Yeah, it was contactless. I really think you just need it far less. Malaysia, we used a lot of contactless. We had some cash as well. Singapore, we just had contactless. So it was mainly contactless in some destinations like Europe was mainly contactless, but we found Sri Lanka you have to have the cash, and definitely Morocco we had cash. Yeah.
So did you run into any transport or accommodation problems or hiccups along the way?
I don't think so. I think everything went fairly smoothly.
There's the one in Spain with the train strikes. We had to look at our plans.
That's
we had to
true,
book a flight sort of last minute because we couldn't take the trains.
That's a good point. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, we were actually going to go by train. The plan was to go to northern Spain, so we were actually going to get the train from Porto in Portugal to northern Spain and then go back to Barcelona that way. Which Doug was really excited about doing and spent ages kind of planning it and figuring it out. And then unfortunately, there was a train strike announced in Spain, which really would have meant the journey was going to be impossible to do. So we hung on. And literally, I booked the flight and an hour later they cancelled the strike. It's too late. I'd booked the flight. So I'm like, we're going to fly. So Doug was like upset for a day or two, going, oh, we want to do the train trip. I'm like, well, I'm going to fly because I've booked it now.
It's so hard, isn't it? I know when we went into the UK a couple of years ago, it was in the middle of all the train strikes that were happening, and we ended up cancelling a journey that wasn't really going to be very easy to do. And then we booked a coach instead. And then the strike was moved or cancelled. And you do have to move around a little bit and be kind of ready to change your plans.
Be flexible sometimes because you just don't know what's those sort of things around the corner.
Just have to go back and do it again.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think everything else went fairly smoothly. Accommodation, it was all pretty good. And I always book with free cancellation for accommodation because you just don't know if you're going to change your plans. Which actually we did in Sri Lanka. We changed accommodation options a few times because I decided to stay somewhere different.
Yeah.
So it was just give us that flexibility and that. I remember we went to Paris a few years ago and I got sick on the day, the day before. So we managed to kind of cancel what we're going to do. And
I was just going to say, we travel with kids, so they can get sick and things like that. So you might need to change things, or you might get another recommendation on the road from somebody that makes you want to change where you're going to stay.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's always good to be flexible and open to new options. What were the biggest challenges and low points during the trip? Were there any low points, or was it all exciting and fun?
I was disappointed in Spain because I couldn't do the high speed lines.
I got sick a few times. It seemed to be recurring every 6 weeks where I would just get a sore throat, a bit of a cough and feel a bit just tired. And then I'd have to take a couple of days or like a whole day just resting in bed. And that just seemed to recur every 6 weeks. But I think you said I need to probably go and have a check on my vitamin levels or something, see if it was. And I think... that wasn't a low point. It's just something that happened. I didn't get too sick, thank goodness, because I think that I'll never forget the trip we did in 2023 when we did a lot around Asia and I got pneumonia because that did impact hugely on the trip.
I don't think we had a lot of low points because we're just quite flexible with the actual elements booked in a day. If we need to, a little bit more time than stay after yesterday type thing, we'll just take it slower today. I
think disappointing. I mean, it's nothing you can do about it. It's the weather. I was going to say the weather. We were very, very unlucky in Spain and Portugal in that the entire month of March, and they said at the time there was a cloud over Spain and Portugal the entire time, which is unusual. And it can rain a bit, but it just didn't budge. So that did impact, particularly Portugal, particularly Porto, where it was torrential rain. So like, you can go. I mean, we've got rain jackets and all the rest of it, but when it's that torrential, you couldn't really do anything.
Yeah.
So that was a bit disappointing.
Well, we worked those days, didn't we?
Yeah, that's it. We just took advantage and just did work. But I guess that's just these days with change of climate, you don't know exactly. You can't guarantee what you're going to get.
No.
Yeah.
So did you ever feel overwhelmed while you were travelling, or homesick, or burnt out, or just exhausted from the whole experience, or you just kept enjoying it the whole way round?
I think part of having the spreadsheet and planning out, we keep our targets achievable and realistic.
Yeah, and adjust and have that flexibility. I don't think so. I think one thing that I did feel at the end of coming to the end of the trip was that I was less inclined to want to necessarily go and see something like a museum or a kind of, must-see landmark or...
Not another museum.
Yeah, I was just a bit like, I don't know, I think I got a bit historyed out, which sounds a bit crazy, but I just was like a bit, I want to know the history and about the destinations, but I just didn't think I wanted to know it in so much detail. And I think it was just that, I think we learned a lot in Spain, and I know that was a lot of history, and I kind of went, wow, that's a lot of detail from some of these places on. But I think that would probably be it. I was like, I don't know if I necessarily want to. I probably just want to stay longer in a. I think that would be the kind of key thing. Stay longer in a destination,
and maybe balancing different types of trips. So not just history, but do like a wildlife or a safari type trip, or something a bit more outdoorsy after it to balance.
Yeah, I mean, I probably hadn't done that much. I guess it just felt like by that point. I remember saying to you, I don't know if I want it. But even things like we're in Singapore, and we'd planned to go and see the super grove, super trees grove, or it's called it, near Gardens by the Bay. And I've seen it a few times, and I really wanted to go, but I was like, I'm too tired, I can't. So I think, and that's okay. Just give yourself that bit of kind of flexibility and think about just how much we had done and learned and seen. But I think that
more mechanical. I think what it does is just, I'm catching the train today, I'm catching the flight today, and we're going to go to this shopping centre, we're going to get that museum, and it becomes, if you're not careful, a little bit too mechanical, a little bit routine.
Yes. So I think that was one thing that I felt after that I'd like to stay longer and really kind of immerse myself in a culture more than actually feeling like I'm going here, there and everywhere, and got, even if it's like we were 15 days in Malaysia, and it was like 5 days in Kuala Lumpur, 5 days in Ipoh, 5 days in Penang. But it was I could have spent longer, and I think that was the thing. It's like we had a list of things we wanted to do in Ipoh, and we kind of didn't do everything because it was like, actually, no, let's have a few days just break.
Yeah.
So I think that's something. When it comes to I could go again. I could get on a flight tomorrow and do it again, but I wouldn't do 22 countries.
It was a little bit extreme.
We might talk about it, but not actually do it.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I just wouldn't. I mean, saying that, I turned 60 in a year and a bit time. I'd like to spend that whole year in South America, exploring South America. But then it's a 12-month trip. But then there's a lot of countries, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, lots to look forward to. So, what was it like trying to run a business and creating content while you're on the go? And like you said before in the last podcast episode that I just interviewed you for, that internet can be patchy, Wi-Fi can be patchy, and that can make things really difficult.
I think we have to divide up what we do. So Doug takes videos, I take a lot of photos. Doug takes the notes of everything that we do every day. He keeps a diary. So that's a good way, because obviously now we're going back and we've just published our Sri Lanka itinerary on the Global Travel Planning website. But we could go through all those notes and then put the post together. So that's how we do it, because I think you know that on a day, for example, if you're out for 10 hours, you're not going to want to do a whole lot of work. So just writing notes, or Doug's going to start dictating the notes and storing them that way. That's a good system for us. What I do struggle with, I do manage to put stories out on Instagram. I'm pretty good with those. But what I do struggle with are the larger content, like doing reels or doing YouTube videos. We decided that was too much to do. We did plan to do some vlogging when we traveled, and that was my intention. But actually, after trying to do that a couple of times, I realized that wasn't really my style. And we are going to be doing a lot of YouTube videos about our travels, but we'll talk about it. We'll record ourselves talking about it, and we'll just use a lot of the videos to show and illustrate what we're talking about.
We also set work days.
Yes.
When we looked at, particularly when we were in Spain, really, when we saw the weather forecast, tomorrow's going to be a horrendously wet day. So we did set some days.
Yeah, we did.
We'll just work.
Yeah, we did. And also when we were house sitting in Scotland, we're there for 7 weeks. So it meant that I could record a lot of podcasts. So because obviously I've got 2 weekly podcasts, which is a lot of podcasts.
That's a lot of podcasting.
Yeah, it is. So I recorded a lot in January. I can't even remember how many, but it covered until basically I got back in June. I did things like wrote 26 emails, my travel tip Tuesday series on UK travel planning, which is extremely popular, has gone down so well. I wrote all of those in January and scheduled those ahead. So it's kind of planning ahead and also planning what you need in terms of getting the content.
And batching.
Yeah, when you're in a destination as well. And also giving yourself some time to enjoy it as well, and not constantly thinking, what do I need to get? What do I need to get? If you plan ahead and know what you need. So if you know, for example, you're going to write an article about EPO, then you know exactly the places that you need to get photos for and get video for, and you know what you're going to do and look for.
Yeah.
And in some places we stopped, we deliberately booked self-accommodation, self-catering type places. So if we're having work days and the weather was bad, we really would not need to go out. And we did set those days aside, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. And we did a lot of that. We did booked apartments in Spain and Portugal. We did have some hotels in Portugal, but it meant that we knew that we could work. We had more space. We had a washing machine as well, so we could keep on top of washing.
Yes. And your house sitting as well. You did quite a few house sits through it as well.
Yeah, so that really helped as well. So I think it's that, just planning how you're going to manage your work, because it's not a holiday in the traditional sense of what everybody thinks.
And like you said, knowing how you work best, because I'm the same as you. I don't like creating reels when I'm on the go, trying to enjoy a destination.
Yeah.
You want to enjoy it and experience it and then take that away and put that into a reel, rather than feeling like you're missing out on having fun because you're creating content all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, I've got a lot of friends who will write up what they did every single day and put it on their Facebook group, and I'm just not good enough. I really should be doing that, and I just find I'm too tired to do that. But now we've got every bit of information about what we did every day, so we can share that with photos now.
Yeah.
You just have to be aware how you're going to cope with it and manage it, because it's so easy to burn out with this type of thing.
You work to your strengths.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's not just about travelling. Travelling's exhausting anyway, but travelling and working and creating content, it's a very different experience. And you're trying to take notes of everything that you're doing because you're trying to share all of those tips and things. Right. So there's a lot going on in your mind. Like it's exhausting.
Yeah, and you'll try things that you wouldn't necessarily try because you know that somebody's going to ask you about that. So you might try different ways of transportation so that you can try all the different ways out. Or so you're always kind of thinking about, and especially because we're kind of aiming to help, or what we do is help people to plan their trips maybe for a first time to a particular destinations all over the world. We're kind of going into it as well with what does a first time visitor need to know? What have we kind of taken away as a first time visitor to this destination that wish we had known before we went? And that's what we're trying to do, is like, how can we share those tips and that information to make it so if you're planning to visit Japan, or you're planning to visit Vietnam, or you're going to go to Sri Lanka, we have all that information that you need to know as a first time visitor to prepare yourself.
Yeah, no, that's great. So what did you learn about yourselves, about travel, about each other while you were travelling? I'm sure it was quite an experience being away together for that long.
It was. I mean, we did pretty well, I think.
Yeah.
No divorce.
No, not
occasionally I went off. Tracy wanted a bit of peace and quiet, so I went and did something different. That's the beauty of the self-catering places, where there's more than one room. At times we're working in different rooms, or I went out, or
Yeah, I think it's that, having that flexibility. We did exactly the same. I'm thinking about Vietnam as well. Like, you went and did a tour, a whole day tour that I just want to have a day and just relax. I need to reset. Mm-hmm. So Doug went and did that tour, and I didn't do it. And it's kind of recognising that you're going to have different interests, and that's okay. So one of you could go to the art museums, that would probably be more me, and Doug could go to the train museum, because that would be more him. So, so it's that kind of looking at what you both enjoy, and then giving yourself a bit of space as well to do that. And then kind of working together on things like meals and washing, all those things that you have to do. There's mundane tasks that you need to
You forget about those sort of daily tasks when you're travelling.
Yeah.
Because
Bills to pay.
bills to pay. Yeah, who's in charge
Yeah.
of doing what, so that you don't have to worry about that, because the other, Doug's sorting that out. So that's not on my plate to do as well. So it's kind of knowing who's doing what.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. That's a good idea of allocating tasks to each other.
Yeah.
And also you've got two of you, so you're getting double the content creation as well, because if Doug's off doing one thing and you're off doing a different thing, then you're able to kind of spread yourself more around and do more activities that will interest different people. So that's really good. So what would you say to someone who is dreaming of planning such a similar big trip to yours?
Go for it.
Where do you begin?
Go for it.
I'll go for it, yeah.
I think decide where you want to go and how long for, what your budget is.
Realistic.
Be realistic. It's going to be more expensive.
And add extra.
Than you think.
I was just going to say.
It's going to be more expensive than you think.
The reality is that some countries, sometimes some cities are more expensive than others.
Yeah.
So you've got to think, what's the most important thing for you? Is the accommodation, is that the most important thing for you? Or is the going out for a nice meal, is that the most important? So you've got to find a mix that suits both of you, type of thing, or whoever's traveling.
Yeah, and kind of have some flexibility and stuff. I think when, like, for example, I wanted to stay in Barcelona because we were writing about Barcelona but Doug had gone during his childhood to Sitges, which is south of Barcelona, and so he said, "Why don't we stay in Sitges? And we can travel into Barcelona." And I was like, "Oh, okay, right. Is it going to be difficult?" And he went, "No, it's really easy to get." And I loved Sitges. Sitges. I wouldn't, honestly, if you're going to stay in Barcelona, don't stay in Barcelona. Go and stay in Sitges. Yeah. It's really easy to get into Barcelona by train. It was just lovely. Yeah. It was so lovely. And we weren't in the big melee of the big city. We were out beside the beach in this gorgeous little town. It was that was actually a big surprise for me, and that was something I had to kind of give and take, because Doug was like, "Oh, let's go," and I was like, yeah. So kind of listening to each other as well was something that we did, isn't it? Yeah. So I'd say that listen to what your if you're traveling solo, you can do what you want, you can go where you want. But if you're traveling with a family or with a partner, ask chat about where you want to go and what you want to do. So when you do that overall itinerary, you go into places that you both want. But then when you get to the nitty gritty, then you might go and do separate things on a day, and it's okay.
And that's true. When you're traveling for quite a while, you're bound to have, let's say, off days, but days where your energy levels is not quite up there, sort of thing. So you've got to have a bit of flexibility. Maybe just setting out a bit later in the morning, a bit of a lie in bed in the morning, and taking a bit of a slower pace, or changing your itinerary a little if possible.
Yeah, that sounds like a good balance. So what's one thing you would definitely do differently if you did it all over again? Which I'm sure you will be doing it all over again at different places next time. But
I don't know. I think for me is I'd like to spend longer in some destinations, and I probably would avoid Europe in winter. Not for December was amazing, and I loved the Christmas markets, but I'd forgotten about the actual reason why I moved from the UK to Australia until I realised that January in Scotland it's dark and grey and the weather was a bit iffy. So I think I would probably look at certainly not going in summer. I wouldn't go to places like Europe in June, July, August. I would not a chance. Would I?
Look at school holiday dates as well. It's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just probably a bit more slower travel, less destinations.
More train travel.
Always.
There's one thing I would do next time, once we've settled on an itinerary, is have a look if there's any public holidays that I'm unaware of, or festivals in a town, city, country.
Like you were saying in Sri Lanka, that impacted your trip there.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we adjusted, as required for sort of thing. But I think I definitely would do a search, see if there's any upcoming public holidays I'm unaware of, festivals.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Yeah. Right, final question. We made it to the end. What is one tip you would share with someone who is planning their 9-month or extended trip around the world for the first time?
Oh, I think be organised with everything back home. So, if you're leaving your home, make sure that it's locked up, it's safe, that you've got people checking on it because then you don't want to be worried about what's going on. There was a cyclone.
I was going to say we had a cyclone here in Brisbane.
So we're very lucky that we've got a friend who lives above our apartment, so she could check on the apartment and keep it safe for us. And also we planned things like we knew what bills were going to come out. Doug all sorted all that on a spreadsheet, because what you don't want to happen is, for example, a big bill to be coming out and you're somewhere where there's no Wi-Fi and you haven't set it up. So we did a lot of direct debits, or late pay. Yeah. So just know what's happening back home, so that you've got everything covered. Because the last thing you want to do when you're thousands of miles away is have to deal with something that you can't sort out at home, that you haven't already got some sort of plan for.
Yeah, I would say strategically look where you can leave luggage. We've done it on 2 locations, but I would always, if possible, so obviously travel light to start with, but if you're traveling across seasons, sometimes it's just not physically possible to reduce too much what you're carrying. So if you can leave your luggage and part your trip in a country or town or area, if you can leave it in one location, some of it, and you travel light, I would always look at that option.
And there's one thing I'm going to say, which I would also say, is make sure you've got good travel insurance. If you can't afford travel insurance, you can't afford to travel. That's
so important.
Yeah, absolutely. So that would be it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for telling us all about your trip today. It's been really fun and learning all about it.
Well, thanks, Karen. Thanks again for coming on and interviewing us on the podcast. I will put a link to your podcast and to everything we talked about in this episode in the show notes, which are at globaltravelplanning.com /episode 62. But that leaves us to say, as always, until next week,
Happy global travel planning.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Global Travel Planning Podcast. For more details and links to everything we discussed today, check out the show notes at globaltravelplanning.com. Remember, if you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a review on your favourite podcast app, because your feedback helps us reach more travel enthusiasts just like you. Anyway, that leaves me to say, as always, happy global travel planning.